Hello everyone! In this two-parts video analysis we are going to take a deep look at Time Crisis Razing Storm, which is a collection of 3 different Namco light gun games. More specifically, the collection includes Razing Storm, Time Crisis 4 and Dead Storm Pirates, along with some extras. Every game is compatible with the Move controller, of course, as well as with the Namco Gun 3 and a traditional controller. The move calibration process is the very same for all the 3 games and pretty straightforward. You have to perform it upon starting each game, as they are all treated as separate titles. While the on-screen cursor is perfectly responsive in all of them, don't expect to hit targets aiming down the sights like you would with an actual light gun. The on-screen cursor, in fact, is prone to drifting slightly out of alignment, not something you will notice while shooting from the hip, but if you pretend consistent pixel-perfect alignment, you should go with the gun con alone. Also, don't miss the end of the second part of this video, as I have something rather important to say about the pointer behavior.
Time Crisis 4.
Okay, let's begin this analysis with the Time Crisis 4, which is the most traditional Time Crisis in the collection. The controls are very simple and the relative settings allow to change which buttons to press for shooting and reloading or covering, as well as whether you want to perform the latter action by pressing or releasing the corresponding button. So the story premise has you fighting against a group of terrorists in the shoes of 2 special agents, or both of them if you are playing multiplayer.
Action!
As you can tell, the game plays just like you would expect, using the move to shoot at enemies and holding a button or releasing it depending on your settings for ducking behind cover to avoid being hit, as well as to reload. What's new here is that you have 4 different weapons at your disposal, which you can scroll through by tapping the trigger button while behind cover.
Shotgun, grenade, handgun.
Selecting the right weapon for every situation is fundamental to build high scores and clear the screen of enemies in the least amount of time.
Grenade.
In some instances, you are also given suggestions about which weapon is best for dealing with a particular enemy.
From every direction. High-tech reinforced armor. Shotgun. Use the machine gun. Use the shotgun when the enemy gets...
For weapons other than the handgun, the ammo is limited, so you have to resupply by killing enemies dressed in yellow.
It's going to take 30 seconds to open.
Another novelty is the multi-screen shooting. In some occasions you have to fight enemies coming from 2 or 3 directions while behind some sort of barricade. You can change which direction to face freely by pointing the move outside the edge of the screen. Some boss fights also use this system.
In front of you.
In other instances you fight in the darkness, using your move as both a gun and a flashlight.
Shotgun.
And of course there are also chasing sequences and sniping moments.
Aim carefully for the tires. Shoot them again.
As for multiplayer, Time Crisis 4 supports 2 players locally, each shooting from their own point of view via a split-screen solution.
Grenade. Reload.
Moving on to Razing Storm, this is clearly the game with the most extra content built around it, hence why the whole collection is called after it, at least in the Western markets. Aside from the arcade mode, in fact, there is also a story mode which adopts a first-person shooter solution, an online mode based on the first-person shooter formula, as well as a sentry mode, which is more of a minigame actually. Let's start with the arcade mode, which can be played by 2 people sharing the same screen. As you can see, controls are basically identical to those of Time Crisis 4, and so are the options on offer. What's also identical is the narrative premise, albeit you are not a special agent, but rather a member of a special force whose soldiers share the same hairstyle.
Deal. We can take care of him in no time.
We're almost there.
Let's go over this again. Listen up. Hey, you listening?
Hey, newbie. You men aren't even...
Unlike Time Crisis 4, in Razing Storm you don't hide behind the scenery, as you are equipped with a rather resistant rear shield you can rise anytime. You also reload behind it. Enemies that are about to shoot at you are indicated by a contracting red cross. When it contracts completely, a bullet flies straight at you, which you can block with your shield, or else it will reduce your life points. This basic principle changes a bit when fighting special enemies like this raptor. There are no red crosses here, but rather yellow markers indicating missiles coming in your direction, which you can either shoot mid-air or block with your shield. The shield is also used to defend yourself in other circumstances. Different weapons are also given to you on different occasions in order to deal with the menace at hand. When the menace is gone, you revert to your standard rifle, which has plenty of ammo in its clips, so that you can enjoy the high level of destruction you can cause to the environment. This is not just cosmetics though, as you actually need to interact with the environment to get a clearer or early view of your enemies. Not to mention causing collateral damage. In other situations, you need to go easy on the trigger as there are civilians around you don't want to shoot.
They're getting in the way! Take care of the enemies near the civilians! Now! Get out of there!
At times you are also asked to help some of your comrades by killing specific enemies that are shooting at them. If successful, you are rewarded with an extra life point. There are also instances where you have to use a sniper rifle.
Check out the dumb look on that one's face.
Or clear the sky from incoming missiles. And of course there are boss fights, which are quite nicely presented.
Pull back!
Moving on to the story mode, here the control setup requires a dual shock or a navigation controller alongside the move, as it plays like a first-person shooter. Basic controls are, as you would expect, moving with the stick, pointing with the move and shooting with the trigger. You can also toss grenades, which can be cooked just like in Killzone 2. Actually, the game seems to have been inspired quite a bit by the guerrilla first-person shooter, especially since it adopts a first-person cover system. But there are some differences, of course. First of all, you can only attach to covers which are indicated by a green triangle like this one. That's where you can perform the so-called G action. Simply point the controller above the screen to go into cover. Done that, you can peek out by pointing the controller back at the screen. It works relatively well, but there are some issues. First of all, when pointing the move back at the screen, you better do it fast and precisely, otherwise you will end up pointing at the sky or the ground. It feels awkward at first, but with practice you can pull off this peeking motion effectively and consistently. You can also calibrate the sensitivity of the G action by adjusting how far you must raise the controller to activate it. The higher the sensitivity, the less you have to raise the controller to go into cover. Note that this fixes other issues related to this cover system. First of all, you have no control over the orientation as the peeking direction is prescripted. Here I can only peek from the right, even if I could theoretically do so from above, and there is no blind fire. Also, as the enemies are not aggressive enough to force you behind cover, you soon realize that simply strafing in and out of cover is all you need to do in order to deal with them. And actually, using the cover system can do more harm than good due to the prescripted peeking direction we have seen before. You need to do some tip-tapping before getting into the G action spot that actually faces the direction you want to shoot at. By the way, you can do this whole G action thing with a standard controller as well. Rather more useful than the G action function is the auto look one, which allows to keep a locked target within the bounding box, so that you don't have to rotate the camera manually to follow it. You need to hold a button to activate this, and you do still need to move the cursor around, as this function locks the camera, not the aiming cursor. When using a DualShock, this function is useless as your crosshairs are fixed in the middle of the screen and you can't move the camera as long as the enemy is auto-looked at, so to speak. When sniping, the auto-look feature turns into some sort of auto-spotting one, as the zoomed-in camera view automatically travels towards the nearest enemy. Of course, you still need to aim at the target manually.
Point there. Hey, we got company! Don't let anyone escape!
Speaking about camera, let's take a look at the basic camera controls. I must say that if it wasn't for MAG, Razing Storm Story Mode would have led me to believe that the Move motion controller is not a good fit for first-person shooters. This is because the way it was implemented here is hardly optimal. First of all, when crossing the edge of the bounding box, the camera starts rotating too fast at full speed. There is very little acceleration going on. You can of course lower the camera speed to mitigate this, but then again you end up turning around too slowly. As for the bounding box, you can adjust its size in a very limited way, choosing between different setups that don't allow to change height or width independently. At the end of the day, no matter the final configuration you eventually stick with, you will definitely end up relying mostly on the auto-look feature to keep your targets in view. That's not to say the game is broken, it's just the way it is meant to be played, I assume. As for the weapons on offer, aside from this one, which is quite entertaining, there is nothing really interesting to note. Also, don't expect to be blown away by the artificial intelligence.
Don't let anyone escape!
Overall, more than a proper first-person shooter, this feels more like an on-rail shooter gone off rails. That said, if you can cope with its limitations and embrace its aiming assists, there is some fun to squeeze out of this. And that's it for the first part of this overview. Check the second one for my analysis of the other game modes included in Razing Storm, as well as the third game in the collection, Dead Storm Pirates. Ciao!
Nice one!